All righty, everybody. Welcome back to the KSL.com Game Center podcast. It is Thursday, February 2nd, and we are joined once again by University of Utah beat writer Josh Furlong to talk a little bit about a different sport that we have not covered yet on this podcast, which is gymnastics, because the Utah gymnastics team is very good, known as the Red Rocks. I'm sure many of you know that, ranked currently fourth in the nation and welcoming number 5 UCLA to Salt Lake tomorrow. So a great time to kind of talk about this team, their season, and what makes them special. So yeah, just to start out with, Josh, maybe give us a quick, just kind of overview update on what this team's season's been like so far.
Yeah, this is an interesting season for the Red Rocks. They're always consistently in those top rankings. They have been for quite some time, and so number 4 isn't necessarily a surprise. It's kind of where they hover around for much of the time. But this season's one where they've got a lot of veteran talent. They've got a lot of gymnasts that know exactly what they're doing from the jump. This isn't like they're trying to build up to something, but there's still a gradual build. They're still trying to mesh together as a team, trying to work together to be able to get those high scores. Last week they got their highest score of the season. They almost broke the 198 mark. 198 mark, for those that don't know much about gymnastics, that's kind of the benchmark for elite teams. You want to be able to have as many 198 scores as possible to be able to contend for a national championship. What those scores essentially do is they all get kind of rated at the end of the season, and it kind of puts you into a regional spot. So the higher scores that you get throughout the season, they essentially get you into a better regional spot and opportunities. So although Utah's ranked number 4th, they want to be able to be in one of the top 3, especially just to be able to make sure that they get into a more preferred spot, just the way that the seedings go. But this is a team, like I said, that has a lot of veteran talent, a lot of great opportunities available to it. They're still kind of looking for some more growth and opportunities. Tom Farden, their head coach, he really likes to mix and match the lineups and kind of put different gymnasts in different lineups to kind of see what he's got, and as the season develops, you'll kind of see where he's leaning. So, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, this is a great team to follow. They're fun, they're exciting. There's a lot of talent out there, and you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, you mentioned it's not a surprise to see them ranked number 4 in the nation, which I think is a little surprising to hear, especially for a team coming out of Utah who's, in we have great sports teams, obviously, in a variety of areas. But to hear that, perennially a top 5 team in the nation is not something that you really expect to hear. So I'm curious, in a sport like gymnastics, which is a little bit niche, especially when it gets to the college level. I think college gymnastics is even more niche. A lot of people tend to follow gymnastics in the Olympics, things like that. And Utah has also had their fair share of Olympic gymnasts, which is always fun and kind of gives people a gateway right into this team to realize, hey, I've heard these names. They were in the Olympics, that kind of stuff. But I'm curious, what is it about this team in this market that has kind of made them stand out and become this national powerhouse?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because, like you mentioned, it's kind of random to be able to have a team out here to be so dominant. But what happened is Utah hired on Greg Marsden. He was the one that started the gymnastics programs at Utah, and he took it as a different vision for what most people had for gymnastics. Like you mentioned, gymnastics is more of a niche sport, at least back then, especially. College gymnastics has grown a ton, especially since the NIL world is starting to bring to light a lot of that opportunities. But what happened was Greg Marsden really kind of saw this vision, 40 plus years ago, to be able to say, okay, look, this can be an entertainment value, not using it in the sense where, we're going to try to attract people, on sex appeal or anything like that. It was more just like gymnastics can be entertainment. And so he tried to market it in a way that was just like the biggest event that was known to man on the campus of the University of Utah. And that takes time and it takes a while. And for those first few years, I mean, Utah dominated because they just approached it differently. And he built this program into such that the Huntsman Center became a sold out venue for gymnastics as one of the highest grossing sport or women's sport in all of the country because it just is highly attended. A lot of people are coming to it and they're interested in it. And a lot of that is to Greg's vision of what he felt like gymnastics could be. Obviously, there's the Olympics that you mentioned where it's kind of takes one of the spotlights where everybody tunes in for the gymnastics in the Summer Olympics. Well, that's kind of what he envisioned for college, and it's especially getting that way, like I mentioned with NIL. So, he took that and he grew it for whatever long time that it was. It was 40 plus years that his career was. His wife joined him later on and helped dominate the market. They're the only collegiate team in the country that has made it to every single national championship ever. Like, there's no other
Wow.
team that's ever done that. Georgia was with Utah for a while until a couple years ago when they kind of fell back. But Utah's literally been into every single NCAA championship that's ever been created. And they've won 10 championships. So, I mean, they're a dominant team. They haven't won for quite a while. They've kind of been close, but not close enough. So they're trying to get there. But Tom Farden, who took it over from the Marstons a few years ago, he's really taken that vision and is exactly kind of what Greg wants, and he's trying to grow it even bigger. So it's kind of a fun product to be able to watch because it's not just this, okay, you're watching tumbling on a floor, right? I think some people think of gymnastics as kind of this really lazy, not lazy, but like boring sport where you're just watching a bunch of women flip and tumble and do all this stuff. But they've turned it into this really rocking event where the Huntsman Center is a great venue to be able to be at, and it's an electric. It's inviting. Other teams. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's difficult to play in because you're in an away environment, but you've got people that just cheer you on for doing your gymnastics. So it's a really fun environment to be at, and they have the Marsdens to thank for that.
Yeah, you mentioned turning gymnastics into like more of an entertaining spectacle, right? And I think we've certainly seen that, especially with the music that's used in some of these routines. I know don't want to bring up the rival too much, but one of the gymnasts down at BYU did a Barbie inspired routine that went semi-viral. And then of course, I do want to talk a little bit about just this cool opportunity that Utah has to welcome a lot of these other big teams to Salt Lake, right? We saw it when LSU came to town a few weeks ago. We're going to see it this weekend when UCLA comes to town. UCLA is a powerhouse in gymnastics. They've had great performers, great gymnasts. So just over the last few years, I remember I can't Ohashi was that one with the girl a few years ago that was really big for UCLA. And so yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And so maybe just touch on that a little bit about, like, what's it like to, I guess, have this venue and have this opportunity to welcome in these stars, I guess, to Salt Lake.
Yeah, UCLA, like you mentioned, is one of those programs that gets a lot of attention. And for as much as people want to bring entertainment value to gymnastics, that's exactly what UCLA does, especially on the floor. Those floor routines is kind of where UCLA shines. They like to be able to create these, quote unquote, viral routines that get people really excited into the sport of gymnastics. And so you bring that into Utah, which has always been a dominant team. UCLA, they struggled last year. There was a whole bunch of problems with that we don't need to get into. A lot of coaching issues and some drama that was happening inside the program. But they're back. They have Jordan Childs, which if you're familiar with the Summer Olympics, she was one of the best gymnasts in all the world, trained with Simone Biles. Just a phenomenal gymnast that just does everything right. So you bring in a team that's ranked number 5. It just so happens that Utah and UCLA have been rivals in gymnastics. These two, there's no love lost between these two programs. Like, as much as gymnastics is a very friendly and welcoming environment for anybody that comes into the Huntsman Center or wherever you go, there's a little bit more of an edge between these two programs, and there's not a lot of fun had for some of the things that happen. So it's one of those meets where you look at, you circle it because it's always fireworks. There's always something. It always comes down to the end. And so it's fun, right? You got two programs that really like to bring the entertainment value. They've been solid. UCLA, has a lot of talented gymnasts that are Olympians. Utah has a lot of Olympians that are on there that are doing really solid. So usually the Pac-12 runs through either one of these programs, and it's no different this year. So it'll be interesting to see how this is. It's a great opportunity at the Huntsman Center to be able to see the two top teams from the Pac-12. So if you've honestly never caught a Utah gymnastics meet, the one against UCLA is the one that you want to pay attention to.
Certainly, certainly. And then maybe could you just give us a quick little overview of who some of these stars are on the Utah side, who people should be looking out for?
Yeah, the number one name to look at is Grace McCallum. She was part of the last U.S. gymnastics team, was one of the members of the four team. She competes in the all around. What that means is she competes in basically every event. So she does all four events and tries to compete with Jordan Childs and some of these other gymnasts. So she does really well. She's kind of the anchor for a lot of what the team does. But there's a lot of great talent on this team, especially for the beam team. Utah is a beam school. That's one of the most interesting events because it's just so daring to watch, because you have gymnasts flipping over on this 4-inch beam and doing all this stuff. And Utah actually is the number one team in the country with it, and they're led by Miley O'Keefe. She's a senior. She's their anchor in that position, and consistently gets close to a 10 every single time she goes out there. But you have Crystalisa, who is a fifth-year senior. She's doing great. You have a freshman, McKenna Smith, who's really come on hot as of late. She's done a phenomenal job of acclimating herself in here. You got Jaden Rucker, another senior who just is just brings the fire and personality to the team. You have Abby Brenner, who came from Michigan as a transfer. She brings a whole load of energy to the team and is kind of bringing them together. There's honestly, from top to bottom, there's gymnasts that I could continue to name on their various strengths and the different things there, especially with Kara Aker and Amelie Morgan, who are both Olympians themselves. So it's fun to be able to watch. There's a lot of talent there, and you never know who you're going to see, because Tom Farden mixes it up and likes to get as much talent out there as he can.
Definitely, definitely. I'm sure it'll be a packed house tomorrow night, 7 p.m. for this meet. I know you wrote a piece a few weeks ago about the Huntsman Center and about the curtains that are put up for basketball games at times. And I think it's so fascinating that this gymnastics team is able to fill it up, but the basketball team isn't always able to fill it up. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic
Consistently,
to have
absolutely,
there. Yeah.
consistently. It's great.
Cool. And this, if I'm not mistaken, this meet is also going to be broadcast on ESPN2, which is huge. Just great exposure all around for the university. And yeah, should be a blast. I'm even tempted myself to head up the hill and check out what's going on.
Do it.
Oh man, I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna be one of those boys though that with the cardboard cutout.
You're not going to be screaming Livy and
Yeah,
trying to get her to come meet you. And
I'm I, I'm not gonna block the bus. All right, I'm not gonna get in the way of anything that's going on. Okay, I promise.
I want you to wear a T-shirt of one of the gymnasts and just like total fangirl on it.
Amazing. Yeah, it really is. You mentioned the NIL stuff that's really kind of blown up, and it's such an individual star-centered sport that I think is really attractive to a lot of people. I mean, that's what we like at the end of the day in sports, right? We want to have these stars, we want to have these people that are kind of supernatural spectacles, right? So I think gymnastics is certainly a fun one where front and center in the spotlight, right? So thanks for coming on, Josh, talking about the Red Rocks, this fantastic team. And we'll look forward to seeing what they do tomorrow in a 4 versus 5 national matchup tomorrow at the Huntsman Center. So we will catch you guys next time on the KSL.com Game Center podcast.